Welcome
Hello,
to another
Charles.
CEO Wisdom podcast. Hi, Cédric. We have Cédric Nève with us. He's a CEO of Digiteal. He helps you get your invoices paid faster, more regularly, and at a lower cost in Belgium. I think I had a couple of Belgium guests this year. You'd be probably the second, Cédric. So if you could introduce yourself, tell us a bit more about what you're up to nowadays.
Yep. So indeed, I'm the CEO and founder of Digiteal. We're a fintech company originating from Belgium, but operating throughout Europe to provide three types of services: e-invoicing, and I think we're going to talk about that later in this podcast. Um, so structured e-invoicing to be able to send and receive invoices in a structured way. Payments as a certified payment institution. We are certified by the National Bank of Belgium to provide those payment services. It's like a mini bank certification, if you want, as operated in Europe. And um, and so those payment services include everything from payment buttons, QR codes, card payments, subscription payments, tokenized cards, marketplace payments, all of that. And then finally, we do access to banking information in real time to be able to retrieve your position, your bank transactions, and be able to reconciliate all of that. So you sent an invoice, you got paid for the invoice, you see the live data of this payment coming through as your customer is paying. So that's really what we do.
And who are you competing with? Is it QuickBooks, Xerox, sort of?
For each of the categories of service that we provide, we have different competitors. So it's a very uh, competitive market. For e-invoicing, we have competitors like Pajero,
Square, maybe Square,
Square
maybe Stripe.
for the Stripe for the payments, certainly, but also Adyen, Checkout.com, GP Morgan for the so all of the big guys for the payment side, and for the open banking. There we have also some competition from mostly European players on this side because open banking isn't yet a thing in the United States. So, well, maybe one day. But yeah, so those are European players like Tink and others. But the fact is, most of those players have been acquired either by banks or by Visa and Mastercard that are trying to shut them down because obviously it doesn't really work well with their model. So they're trying to just acquire and shut down.
And that's quite sad, right? But tell me how you actually compete with these giants. I see you had some funding. What's your superpower as a CEO? How can you still keep up or even beat them at their own game?
Yeah, those very big players are having very different strategies from one to another. And payment is a huge market. We're using payments multiple times per day, so there's really a lot of opportunities for this. And we believe that payments should be invisible and everywhere. So when you're providing a service or using a service, you should be able to pay for it at a transaction level. So just, okay, I want to use this service and then I pay for this mini transaction. Um, and if I have an invoice that I receive, I want to be able to pay it one click away. And so all of this requires integration. The way we are providing the service that is quite different from most of our competitors is that we're providing it through partners and distributors that embed our solution through APIs. So we're an API-based company, a bit like Stripe, if you want, except that we we don't compete with our own customers because that's a tendency of Stripe. It's like, okay, build it all vertically and then start to sell to businesses directly. So any integrations that they might have with partners are kind of lost and it's a bit of a bad position, and we don't want to compete with our partners and distributors. So what we do is just we're in the back. We're providing these services through APIs. Those partners usually don't have access to those services anyway directly because they need to be certified. Becoming a payment institution is quite an undertaking. They don't do that themselves, so they use our service to embed that into their own software, benefit from it, and then distribute our solution. So
And
that's the way we're doing it.
what's challenging about running an API business like yours?
Um, well, being known on the market, so recognition, marketing, that's quite challenging.
Do you
And
market
being
to
known,
developers mostly, or
well, we started by marketing to CFOs, but CFOs don't understand APIs. Um, and so we pivoted and we then changed it to say, well, okay, we're going to deliver this to a very specific target audience, which is, well, the guys developing CRMs, invoicing software, accounting software, those kind of software. Um, and targeting then the developers of those companies or the product managers of those companies that understand that in order to deliver the service that they want to deliver, they need to have capabilities like we can provide. So that's the way we're doing it. And then we found out that in fact what we thought was just for those kind of companies is in fact also very useful for hundreds of other companies that have their own in-house solution, because they have exactly the same problem. They're developing a solution in-house. They also want those capabilities. They need to get it from somewhere. Again, they're not getting certified themselves to deliver it directly. So yeah, that also happens that they come to us and they say, okay, well, we want this capability that you have. We have our own in-house tool, and we have the development capabilities to just integrate the APIs that you're providing.
and you charge a percentage off invoices? What's your business and pricing model?
We charge depending on the payment method, but usually it's a fixed cost per transaction that we're charging on top of what well, yeah, on the transaction that is going through. The business model is we have registration costs to get it started and support, because obviously to enable those integrations, they will need some support. So that's the beginning, but it's not really what we want to focus on. We want to focus on, the usual monthly recurring revenue that is interesting, and that is based on the transactions that go through. Transactions, when we're talking about e-invoicing, it's documents that go through. So how many documents did you send last month? And that's what you pay for. For payments, it's the same. How many payments did you do with what type of payment method? Based on the type, you might have different pricing. For Visa and MasterCard, there's a percentage base. For more local payment methods, it's purely cents that go through. And for the access to bank statements, there it's mostly to a subscription. So you pay for 1 month, you want to have access in real time to this bank account, and that's you have a price for that.
And your ideal clients, what do they look like? They need to have a dev team, but is there a specific niche, a specific vertical?
It's better if they have a volume. And so we've seen customers come to us and say, okay, well, we want to be able to have this, we want to have this capability, but we're sending 4 invoices per year. Like, ooh, that's going to be complicated.
So mostly B2C, I would guess.
So yeah, it can be B2C, but it can also be companies that are buying in bulk, reselling, or other types of companies that really have a large number of payments that are required. You can have B2B for. I mean, here we're in a streaming service, okay, using this and enabling this podcast. They have tokenized the cards and they're collecting payments.
With
Well,
Stripe, I
guess,
think.
yeah, probably with Stripe. So bad for them. But yeah, so that's something that we can certainly help. And you see, it's plenty of different use cases where this comes handy.
Right. And is it Europe only, or do you expand internationally?
So we enable payments for merchants within Europe because that is the scope of our certification. We did not apply for this in other regions, United States, Asia, or even Africa. So no, we didn't apply over there. We believe that Europe is already quite a big market for us to be competing into. And we can receive payments from all over the world. So you can pay from all over the world, but the merchant, the one that will receive the funds, must be inside Europe. So that
And you
is
feel
where we're.
Do you feel that Europe is protected from competition because so many legislation, and do you think that vice versa you can go and compete in other countries in the US, or is GDPR sort of not GDPR but European Union laws are restraining you from doing that?
No, we don't feel that as a restriction specifically for Europe. I think I see this as an advantage of Europe, meaning that if you're compliant with European law, you won't have many problems to go anywhere else in the world. It's the most complicated market to be operating in. Um, so you have the European legislation that you need to comply with. In our case, this is still a PSD2, so Payment Service Directive number 2, PSD3 being in the works. So you need to comply with that. And if you comply with that, and then you go to the United States or to the UK for the FCA, and you show that you're compliant already with European law, it's quite simple then to, at least simpler, to get a license. The problem is that it's not only getting the license, it's also then reporting in those countries. And so this comes at an extra cost, which we don't want to bear for the moment. We want to grow first in Europe, and we'll see afterwards where this leads us.
And getting the license, is it high energy, high resource project? And what about reporting? Tell me a bit more about that. Is it like really complicated to get approved and to get compliant?
Yeah, extremely complicated.
And is that a good thing ultimately for the end consumer, or is it just a balls breaker for you?
No, it's really important. Maybe I'm being too European on this aspect, but yes, I believe that it's super important. Um, when you're doing an international payment or even a domestic payment, you want to make sure that the money that you're sending goes to the right place. You want to make sure that all of it will go there, and you want to make sure that it doesn't end up into funding a terrorist organization, funding sanction entities, going to Moscow or to North Korea. Um, and those are only the evident things. The rest is, you also don't want to enable this with narco trafficking or to other things that might be finally the recipient of those payments. You don't want to enable fraud. And all of this comes with checks that you need to put into your organization. You could just say, well, technically this works, so why would I bother with any of the other stuff? Well, it's because the other stuff otherwise gets to bite you in the end. And the bad press that you can have because you accepted a merchant that in fact is a local terrorist organization, well, that's going to ruin your company. So you better have the good processes in place, the necessary reporting, and that's ultimately what it's for. Um, it can be annoying, and of course it takes energy, but for us, we see it as a necessary element of operating to be in a safe environment.
Not sure if you studied Ross Ulbricht, the guy behind the Silk Road, like the true libertarian guy that's about to be freed out of jail by Donald Trump. But what was his philosophy? Why was he so libertarian? Because in the end, he did allow drugs to be sold and even finance terrorist attacks. I think his philosophy was that like it was going to balance itself, and that authoritarianism, whatever that word is, was more of a force of evil. So what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Um, I believe that the rules are there for good reasons. And that if you have no rules, you end up paying the price of this in a very consequential way. Um, so I prefer an environment where there are sufficient rules and you know how this works than a system where um, one rule that you would expect, for example, and that is sometimes lacking, is simple rule of property. You would think that this is a given, but it's not so clear in some states. Well, something that you had can to be taken back by the state. We know those countries; they're far east. So this is quite annoying, and this already happened in history. That okay, you. You had an apartment and suddenly communism hits you and you don't have anything anymore. It's the community that has it. So such rules that we think are important, well, they could be taken away, and it's part of the rule set that you need to apply. When you're a libertarian, you still rely on such some of those rules to be able to operate in society. So it's not completely true that you're just dismissing all of the rules and just living in the jungle. It's not like that. And so yeah, my take on this is you need a specific set of rules to operate. It works for us to have a better society with those rules. You don't need too much of them, and sometimes when there are too much, you need to correct this in some way. But I don't believe that karma is enough of a protection for the overall society. And so to me, it's a lame excuse to be doing business and just getting the funds.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think Ross got blinded by greed or his own philosophy, right? It's so easy to kid yourself in the name of money, right? Like I'll just let everything go, but yeah, of course you'll get richer if the drugs are bought on your website and so forth. I do believe though that Europe has a bit too much bureaucracy that is putting the brakes on entrepreneurs, and been following entrepreneurs like Peter Levels. I'm not sure if you know that guy on X, but it's quite a proponent of yeah, it's not breaking all regulations, but making them more efficient so that we can both stay safe at the same time as we build, because entrepreneurs, they sort of build societies, and the danger of that, and we're seeing it with Trump right now, it's like more of a separatist world in which like Europe needs to sort of thrive on their own without like their allies. I think
I have a
they
different perspective on that. Sorry,
well, I
but
mean, it's not a perspective. It's just Trump that is separating the links and severing the links with his classical allies, right? Canada and Europe. I'm not for that for sure. That is pretty stupid. But what were your thoughts on that?
no, what I mean is that one conception is the allies of the United States are benefiting from this alliance and not giving anything back. That's one way to see it, maybe the Trump way. The other way to see it is that Pax Americana, as we could say, comes with benefits for the whole planet. And because of that, the whole planet agrees to finance the debt of the United States.
Yeah,
So who's in debt
I
of
agree with
who
that.
at the end? So and the system works and we agree on it as long as there is something in return. If there is nothing in return and well, Americana wants to take well its own way and do it, and that's perfectly fine. But don't expect this to come then at the same uh, in the same pact as that we had before. And the debt that you have will need to be financed some other way than through our own economies. So this is all intertwined, and it's not so simple as uh, people might want to portray it. So
Right.
yeah,
And even I think 20% plus of the American debt is financed by China. And I think it's just a state of mind. I think America right now is very paranoid. It's been all of a sudden very trendy to believe in conspiracy theories, right? And invent stuff about national security. But what most Americans need to understand is that in interrelations with other countries and trade is actually securing their borders. It's actually
of course.
the main source of their national security, and severing these economic ties or severing tourism, which is the second factor to world stability, in my opinion, is gonna create more wars. What do you think about that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's the time where we're looking at where are we going to go in vacation, and Turkey is out of our list. We're okay. Israel is out of our list. United States is out of our list too.
Yeah,
Same
for
reasons.
sure. No one wants to go
Authoritarian
there.
regime. Yeah. So that's the that's indeed it's and it's important to have not just the commercial links but also the cultural links. Being understand that we're all on the same planet and we need to thrive together. Um, and yes, having a world economy, being able to rely on each other to produce, consume, have the different services that are required or that we enjoy every day. Well, this is because of this worldwide economy. And yeah, severing ties and making tariffs, being protectionist about it, or too greedy sometimes makes it difficult to operate in the same way. And so, because of that, yes, it's a risky path that can be taken there. So we're
Yeah, and all the short-term uncertainty, which is terrible because one would think that CEOs adapt quick, but they don't. You know, they get paralyzed in fear when you give them like a playbook that they're not certain about. Like that's how most CEOs operate, and that's a huge economic deficit on the short term. And I think that yeah, win-lose type of business doings are totally outdated. Right? They might have worked in the 50s when you dealt with really weak opponents and uninformed opponents, right? But nowadays we have friggin' chat GPT to tell us everything. And it's very, very easy to see through playbooks like that, right? It's like you're just wrong. You're like, why are you doing this? But coming back to Europe again, that doesn't erase, for example, and it's not just Europe, right? It's my native Canada as well. I feel we just cannot compete with Silicon Valley that is moving at lightning speed. There's the VC funding, no government funding, right? Like, how can we sort of adapt to that? If you agree to the premise, right? Like,
no, I don't
it's
think that it's correct. There are some types of services that are well adapted to be funded that way and that can rise that way. But there are also other types of services. I mean, for financial services, you see almost nothing coming from Silicon Valley. That's not the place to build those kind of services. For other production services, you see nothing from Silicon Valley being actually produced in terms of goods of coming from over there. So it really depends on what type of business you're in, and yeah, that's to me very different. Um, I would
well,
like to take an
arguably the biggest fintechs are still from Silicon Valley, right? Stripe, Brex, Ramp, for example. So like all gigantic fintech company, even Ripple could be classified as a fintech, quote unquote.
well, yeah, but mostly they moved there. They weren't born there.
Yeah, Europe
Um,
has Revolut as well, and Klarna and Wise, and these gigantic behemoth of fintech as well.
Yeah. And so if you look at the biggest acquirer, you have some in the United States. You would be surprised. You even have some in Russia that are very big. And so yeah, nothing. Well, not everything happens or is originated from the Silicon Valley. Most of the service, worldwide services provided through the web. The Silicon Valley has certainly an advantage, and is great at producing those services in an efficient way through the funding, through well, all you described over here. But this is just one type of services that we need. Um, so yeah, I think that we need a diversity of those service providers, and yeah, not everything will come from over there.
Cedric,
To give
thank
an
you for.
example, yeah, are you
Yeah, go
already
ahead. Sorry.
yeah, so just one thing again, but it's about sovereignty and how also we can protect from that the protection that we have over there. Um, we see that also in payments, and we are looking in Europe to have well, you might have heard a bit about it, the digital euro, and we are
Yeah.
really investing in that in order to be able to get rid of the dependencies on Visa and Mastercard. So it's also about, okay, what do you build for yourself and how do you yeah, provide alternative solutions so that you don't need to depend so much on international players, or in this case American players that can, if they want, have a very negative impact if they stop operating or operating at market conditions that you would like to continue.
Right. Thank you, Cedric, for today. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, on our website, so www.digiteal.eu, that's where they can find it, and otherwise on LinkedIn. Don't hesitate to get in touch. Always happy to entertain.
Perfect. So that was Cédric Nève, and